Hello, my name is Star, and this is Module 4, and I'm going to talk about Vera Drake and skin. So, starting with Vera Drake. Um, so, yes, I chose gender and storytelling techniques as my two prompts. And so, right off the bat, I want to point out that I noticed in Vera Drake, I think her portrayal was very wholesome, and Vera Drake was very she seemed very homey. Like her aura, her demeanor, it was very much like she was a mom, she was a housekeeper. She's always asking people for tea. Like it, I think her the way she was presented, very much like played a part in the gender aspect, because when she's like a mom, she's a maid, um, and yeah, I think like a good example is like when her son, Sid, Reg, and her husband are all like on the couch and they're talking. She's kind of just there like on the sideline, like with her daughter, and she's just kind of like joyful, smiling, and they're talking about like war and the effects of it, and like how they've been affected by it. So I think that's like, you know, that's not like what gender is, but like in the movie, I think that scene very much like stood out to me. And her whole demeanor, I think, was very I wouldn't say it's like it wasn't it wasn't that like her vibe gave like, you know, just like, oh, she's a woman because she's like all happy or whatever and she's a maid. But I think it definitely played into, like the gender roles, and especially considering the time period that it was set in. Um and then I want to also mention like the pressure of women to have babies and also remain abstinent. Like because women were supposed, they were kind of supposed to. They were expected to have to get married at a young age and settle down fast and have babies and have a family. But at the same time, it's like, you know, it's also kind of frowned upon. You know, Postmodern day, no, pre-modern day, and now it's like frowned upon if you haven't found the right guy, or if you go on too many dates. Okay, stuff like that. But also it's like kind of a backwards teeter totter thing, because it's like there's also pressure to have babies fast, because women are the ones who are able to. And definitely when you think about like Reg and Sid, they're both men, but they had different mindsets on specifically Vera, when they found out what had happened, right? Like Reg was a lot more sweeter and almost forgiving, or like understanding of what she was feeling rather than what she did. And her son Sid had a very different approach. He was very aggressive and like angry, um and I just feel like that had a lot to do with how they were brought up. But the reason why it's connected to gender is because they are both men. There's no like men versus women. They were both men, and so just them having different mindsets on it, and a lot of that being with how they grew up and how their understandings of people are different. But yeah, and then also a fun fact: the movie was almost entirely improvised. It was not like, so basically they would get together in a scene and improvise lines and just kind of go off like the other characters. And for a lot of them, they didn't actually know what the movie was about, or what they were like, what it was going to be. Like basically, they knew what they were filming, but because a lot of it was improvised, they didn't know exactly what it was about until the scenes would like them finding out about Vera giving illegal abortions. So that is really interesting in itself when it comes to storytelling techniques, right? Because not only did they do a great job in the movie, but also like filming the movie itself, not even the actors had a 100% idea of what they were filming. So yeah, and the storytelling techniques, I'm gonna just talk about this one because I think it was really impactful for me, and I noticed it. I like how in the beginning they, it shows her like going to like tend to that man that I'm assuming is like, she helps out, like as part of her job, and then she's like walking down the street, and there's like a little tune playing, and she goes home and she like makes tea with her family, and the way that they sit around the table and you can see it like through a doorway is really really sweet. And it's specifically like jumped out at me when I realized how they kind of kept the sadness and like intense feelings at a minimal until the part of the movie where she has, she's caught for what she's doing. And at that moment, it really feels like it's actually crumbling down, like in front of you. And you can see like all the emotion hit her face, like all at once. Whereas before it was like she barely, could get out of a smile. Like it seemed like her spirit could not be broken. But I think until that moment, it really came down on not just her, but like the viewers watching, like the audience, I think was very, like, the way that it was portrayed and told, I think was very technical, and it made a lot of sense, and I just really appreciated that, and I appreciated the movie a lot. It was very good. I really liked the film. And then also for Skin, although they were in different times and areas of the world, definitely still gender and storytelling techniques, I guess you could find in any movie, but gender played a role. I think that, like, I noticed a lot of the men in the movie Skin were, like, portrayed as, like, aggressive people with aggressive behaviors, and even, like, the dad or the man that Sandra ends up having children with, they start out, like, okay, and over time they, get extremely more aggressive and very, like, just, disrespectful. And I think that says a lot about gender in itself, because typically, like, and obviously not all men are aggressive, not all women are nice, right? There's so many things about gender. I mean, gender, like, in itself is a whole thing, but I personally think that it wasn't just like a coincidence. It's very intentional to make the men in the movie that way. And I think that plays a part in realizing how much harder Sandra's life was, being, a woman of color, and just, being just a woman with anything on top of that that's different is already hard. And her life, I think that her life was harder because she was a woman, like, I just feel like if, like, I don't even know what I was about to say. But yeah, I guess, like, her being a woman made her life harder. I feel like I'm repeating myself, but yeah. And I think, like I said, the men being, like, the aggressors, I think that definitely was to show, the impact of men and women sometimes in their relationships, how it can be different, whereas if it was just like a man and a man, how different her life would have been, maybe. Yeah, I'm almost done. And oh yeah, her mom I think was really interesting, like, when it came to her not leaving to go visit her, even though she tried. Yeah, I think she did try, and she definitely had a lot more love for her than her father. But I think that her not leaving had a lot to do with, like, her her views, right? Like her ideals of like being a wife and being married to someone. I think that she, whether it was out of fear or stubbornness or just her ideals of marriage, I think that her being a wife played a big part in why she didn't actually ever leave to go see her daughter or her grandson. Um, but yeah, I think if her dad was the one calling the shots basically, and he's a man. So that's that, and yeah, that's not really that interesting. Okay, um, I'll mention a storytelling technique that I wrote down is like, I like how in the end the mom is looking at her when she helps her like out of her bed to her chair. I like that the look that she has on her face to me very much said like it was like you're taking care of me now, right? And it was like even though they hadn't seen each other for years, like 10, 15 years, it was very heartwarming to at the end of the movie after all this, these obstacles and these struggles to see her like help her mom and her mom look at her, as if like she's the mom now and the mom was like the daughter being taken care of. So that was nice. And I think that one big thing that they had in common, both movies, was the familial aspect, like the familial ties and how easily certain family ties can be broken, and how you'll find family ties in ways you like don't expect. um, but I think first and foremost, and I didn't realize this till after watching the movies and like reading some articles and some reviews, that both movies are heavily like, I guess, like reliant or based on family aspects before, on aside or like on top of the other things going on in the movie, the other like plot points. I think family was a big one in both these movies, even though they're entirely different stories, right? And they both have entirely heavy like historical backgrounds, but at the end of the day, like the familial ties that both films show in different ways, it really, I think, really is like the big main factor in both of the films. So yeah, that's all I have to say. Thank you so much.